It's been a wet few days. Please stay indoors as much as possible. And if you must venture outside, be careful of flooded roadways and do not attempt to cross rivers. If you live in flood-prone areas, map out your evacuation plan so you can quickly move if it becomes too dangerous to stay where you are. And please, be on the lookout for your neighbors who may need assistance. Hello there, I'm Adrian Atkinson. Welcome to Jamaica Magazine.
Hurricanes can strike at any time. In the event of one, be prepared to act quickly. If a hurricane watch or warning has been issued, review your home disaster response plan. Map out likely routes to evacuate if your home is at risk and confirm with relatives or friends you plan to stay with. Also, confirm the location of the nearest shelter. Check your emergency supplies and restock if necessary. Remember, disasters do happen, so be prepared.
Good day, I'm Stephen McHugh, and this is your JIS News for Monday, October 26. Since last Friday, 2 communities in Kingston and St. James have been placed under special curfew to slow or prevent new exposures and infections of COVID-19. A statement from the Office of the Prime Minister reveals that Raytown in Kingston and Cornwall Courts in St. James have seen an increase in COVID-19 cases sufficient to be of great concern to the health authorities. The concern also stems from the high population density of the 2 areas and the vulnerability of persons within the areas due to severe illness associated with age, comorbidities, and other socioeconomic factors. As a result, both Raytown and Cornwall Courts are now under a daily curfew of 6 p.m. to 5 a.m. the next morning until November 6. During curfew hours, only essential workers with identification will be allowed to enter or exit. Additionally, no more than 6 persons may gather in any public place within the areas, while all other existing restrictions, such as wearing masks and physical distancing, will be strictly enforced. The Heart Foundation of Jamaica, HFJ, has announced a new approach to administering cardiopulmonary resuscitation, CPR, during the COVID-19 pandemic to ensure the safety of all involved. Director of Emergency Cardiac Care at the HFJ, Dr. Hugh Mark Wong, says during this period, individuals trained in CPR should perform chest compressions only CPR.
First thing we must recognize is that the care worker, the person who's providing care, is at risk of getting an infection from the person if it's suspected or confirmed to be. Within community spread, everybody is a suspected person.
Dr. Wong was speaking at a recent JIS think tank to mark CPR Week, which is being observed from October 26 to 31 under the theme Surviving with CPR. He said the changes in guidelines for the layperson to perform chest compressions only was in keeping with the recommendation from the American Heart Association. Government will be providing the necessary assistance to the family of Romeo Leachman and his daughter Sanika, who perished when their house in Shooters Hill, St. Andrew, collapsed due to land slippage associated with the recent heavy rains. Minister of Local Government and Rural Development, Desmond McKenzie, gave the commitment on Saturday during a visit to the area where the body of 15-year-old Sanika was recovered. He was accompanied by Member of Parliament for East Rural St. Andrew, Juliet Holness, along with officers from the Ministry of Labour and Social Security, ODPEM, the National Works Agency, and the Kingston and St. Andrew Municipal Corporation. Minister McKenzie hailed the efforts of the Jamaica Fire Brigade and residents in the recovery effort. While he expressed sorrow at the tragedy, the minister also stressed that Jamaicans must give serious consideration to where they build houses. He said an initial assessment of the area, which is plagued by land slippage, show that many of the houses may have to be relocated. Mrs. Holness also expressed sadness at the death of the father and daughter and said her office would be assisting the family and providing grief counseling where necessary. Meanwhile, Minister McKenzie, who also visited St. Benedict Heights and the Bull Bay area, said $20 million would be allocated to clear roads that had been blocked by flooding and landslides. He said the funds would be part of an emergency response while further assessments are carried out. In addition, the Jamaica Fire Brigade will clear water in communities where it is not receding fast enough, and some residents will be moved to shelters. Also, officers from the Ministry of Labor and Social Security will be distributing care packages, while assessments will be carried out to determine further areas of need. The Ministry of Justice is looking to establish a restorative justice center in Greenwich Farm, St. Andrew, to serve members of that community and surrounding areas. Portfolio Minister Delroy Chuck says 15 members of the community have signaled their willingness to receive training as justice facilitators.
Indeed, just 2 weeks ago, the community of Greenwich Farm were so impressed by what is happening in Tivoli, in Denham Town, in Tower Hill, in Trench Town, that they came to visit us and say they want a restorative justice center. And we're looking at how we can have one in Greenwich Farm.
The minister was speaking during a recent Access to Justice virtual town hall meeting. The National Museum of Jamaica has received a grant funding of $2.7 million to purchase 2 air conditioning units, a standby generator, and a computer. The grant is a gift from the Gerda Henkel Foundation and the Prince Claus Fund for Culture and Development, established in the Netherlands in 1996. Acting Keeper of Collections at the National Museum of Jamaica, Carrie Ann Watson, told JIS News recently that the equipment would significantly improve the environmental conditions of the museum basement storage area and facilitate greater access to our heritage through digitization. Ms. Watson said the computer was needed to digitize thousands of images and artifacts. And finally, government officials, past and present, family and friends of the late former politician Donald Keith D.K. Duncan, praised the life and work of the man during his official memorial service on the weekend. The service was held inside the chapel at the University of the West Indies, Mona, with fewer numbers, in keeping with the COVID-19 restrictions. Those who could not attend in person shared their tributes on various social media platforms. Meanwhile, his son Keith Duncan spoke on behalf of his siblings in honor of the man they said was a trailblazer for the family. A dentist by profession, D.K. Duncan gave over 50 years to Jamaica's political movement, serving as Member of Parliament and Government Minister. He passed away on September 17 at age 80, leaving behind his widow and 6 children. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Stephen McHugh. Thanks for watching.
With the near constant rainfall we've been experiencing comes more water settlements in and around our homes. And this means more opportunities for mosquitoes to breed and spread diseases like dengue fever. COVID-19 is not the only threat to public health. So at every opportunity, check your environment for mosquito breeding sites and destroy them. Here are some examples of places to look.
Mosquitoes are undoubtedly annoying, with their irritating sound and stinging bites. But there are more compelling reasons we'd rather not have them around. Several species are carriers of diseases and a threat to human health. Of most significance to Jamaica is the Aedes aegypti mosquito, known to transmit dengue fever, chikungunya, yellow fever, and the Zika virus. Only female mosquitoes bite, doing so to get the blood they need for egg production. And therefore, only female mosquitoes transmit these viruses.
The Aedes aegypti mosquito is what we call a timid feeder. So she's easily disturbed when feeding. It means that in one night, she may feed on several persons before she takes her complete blood meal. Each time she feeds, she secretes that substance. And in the secretion of the substance, the pathogen is passed on. So in one night, one female Aedes aegypti mosquito is able to infect more than one person.
The female Aedes aegypti mosquito is a prolific breeder.
One female Aedes aegypti mosquito is able to lay up to 200 eggs each time she lays her eggs. So one mosquito can populate an entire area.
The lifespan of the mosquito is around 3 weeks, and the entire cycle from egg to adult can occur in as little as 7 to 8 days. Female mosquitoes are ready to mate within a few hours after reaching their adult stage, and males are usually ready within 24 hours.
This mosquito prefers cleaner waters. For the female mosquitoes, she will lay her eggs in water, and for the Aedes, it will be water which is in and around the household.
So while there are a number of things we can and should do to prevent being bitten, the most effective way to prevent the spread of diseases by these mosquitoes is to prevent their breeding.
The Aedes aegypti mosquito is a mosquito that breeds in a containerized environment. They do not breed in rivers and drains, but they breed in containers that can be found in and around where persons dwell. So come with us and let us show you some of those breeding sites. This is a typical dish drainer that we find in most homes. And under most dish drainer is a tray that collects the water that comes off the dishes. And believe it or not, we have found breeding in several homes in these dish drainers. Yes. You can see that we have water that has settled. If this water does not evaporate quickly, it can lend itself to the breeding of the Aedes aegypti mosquito. So you not only have to empty the dish drainer, but you have to scrub to remove those eggs. This is the typical saucer that we will find under a plant. The rain has reached into fallen, it has collected water, and right now it is steaming with the Aedes aegypti mosquito. Do you have some of these in your home? Aedes aegypti prefers water that is a little bit on the cleaner side, and it's found in a shaded environment. So what should we do with something like this? It's quite simple. You need to throw away the water. And if these containers are not being used, you have to keep them turned down so they're not able to collect water. If you have them under your plants, we ask that you bore holes in them so that it will not collect water. Do you have these in your homes? We find these in a lot of hotels and business places. And we ask those persons, check these bird baths or any ornamental things like these you have in your garden to ensure that they're not breeding the Aedes aegypti mosquito. There are things like this thrown down in person's backyard. Old equipment, old furniture, old fixtures that are taken from homes, especially during construction. These are also able to hold water. And if they're holding water and sit for a while in the environment, they will also breed mosquitoes. And so we have found breeding in wheelbarrows, in old refrigerator, in old sinks such as this one. And we ask persons, if you're throwing out these, please ensure that they are positioned in such a way that they will not collect water.
Many persons, when they do have their drums, most times drums do not have any covers. So there is a mesh cover which is so designed to replace the missing covers. It is lightweight, and what we do is just simply slip it over, and the mesh is so designed mosquitoes will not be able to go through this mesh to get to the water. So this is the ideal way. One of the benefits also of this mesh is that even when rain does fall, water will go right through it. This is a typical example where this we have is a plastic drum and we have a metal cover here which is not designed for this. Whilst in some practice the intent is good, there may be occasions in which it does not fit or sit properly, and as a result you still have openings where mosquitoes can go right through and breed.
The mosquito is breeding right there in some very small places right around where you live. What is the habit we want you to develop? Once every week, search for and destroy the breeding sites of the Aedes aegypti mosquito.
Wet roads and irresponsible driving practices are not a good mix. We have no control over the weather, but we do control how we navigate the traffic environment. To ensure everyone is safe out there, here are some tips for driving in the rain. The first is simple. If at all possible, wait until the weather improves. Number 2, before hitting the road, double-check your car's equipment to make sure everything is in working order. That includes your headlights, taillights, windshield wipers, and tires. Number 3, slow down on wet roads because your vehicle's reaction time is much slower when it is raining. And with that in mind, be sure to also maintain a safe distance of about several car lengths between your vehicle and others. Avoid heavy braking. Instead, try to slow your vehicle by taking your foot off the accelerator earlier than you normally would in preparation to slow down or stop. This is very important. Driving through standing water can cause hydroplaning to occur. This is when you lose traction and skid across the surface of the road. If your vehicle does hydroplane, calmly take your foot off the accelerator and steer in the direction that the front of your car needs to go. Avoid making sudden turns or slamming on your brakes. Let's keep ourselves and each other safe on the road so we can all be around to help Jamaica achieve and enjoy its vision of becoming the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business.
Practice good hygiene by washing your hands frequently using soap and water. Here's how you should do it while conserving water. Turn on the tap to wet your hands, then turn off the pipe. Lather your hands and the tap with soap. Turn on the tap and wash your hands, back, front, and in between fingers. Use some of the water to wash off the tap, then turn it off. Dry your hands with disposable hand towels. If you don't have running water, use a hand rub containing 62% or more alcohol. If hand sanitizers are not available, rubbing alcohol, Dettol, white rum, or household bleach will do the trick. And if all else fails, let hand washing and the handling of potable water be a two-person event. Each person will take turns pouring and washing hands with sitting water. Now is a good time to consider installing a tap on your containers to reduce the risk of water contamination. Faucets can be easily attached to drums, buckets, or 5-gallon water bottles. And to ensure that the outside of the containers are clean when recapping, disinfect it with hand rub containing alcohol that's 62% or more. The 5 R's of water conservation are also necessary to practice. Reduce water wastage by investing in water-saving devices. Reuse water at least twice before discarding. Replace leaking pipes, faucets, and other plumbing equipment. Recycle wastewater and use it for gardening, car washing, or cleaning of public spaces. And reclaim water through rainwater harvesting. We all must play our part to ensure there's water to combat the coronavirus and stave off prolonged drought.
Before we close out today's show, let's pause to remember and honor one of the men who helped usher in Jamaica's independence and shape the face of a self-governing nation. Today marks the 109th anniversary of the birth of Jamaica's second Prime Minister, Sir Donald Sangster. His story next.
Our trade figures show a very important feature that for the first time since 1961, imports of food have declined. If we never did anything else, we set out to rectify that particular aspect of our economy, and we have achieved it in this year of 1965.
For many of this generation, that may be an unfamiliar voice, but sit with some Jamaican giants for a bit, and they'll easily share an objective story about the economic strategist, a great and timely financier. We are about to get insights into the life and political work of a former Member of Parliament, Government Minister, Deputy Prime Minister and ultimately Prime Minister, the Right Honourable Sir Donald Sangster, affectionately called Mr. Jamaica by the rest of the world and Mr. Commonwealth by many of his colleagues. Jamaica gained a precious gift on October 26, 1911, the birth of Donald Sangster down in the breadbasket parish of St. Elizabeth, just over in a little town called Mountainside.
Donald came from a humble family. His father was a land surveyor who bought properties and sold properties and so on. And of course, lived on a farm where they raised cattle. But the point is that he grew up with people that were the humble country folk, right?
His high school years were spent at Monroe College from 1921 to 1929, where he excelled in academics, cricket, athletics, boxing, and gymnastics. In 1937, he was admitted to practice as a solicitor or legal practitioner in Jamaica. At the age of just 21, on June 22, 1933, Donald Sangster won a seat in the St. Elizabeth Parochial Board, now the Parish Council. He later became Vice Chairman and then Chairman of the Board, and so his efforts to enter national politics ensued.
I, Donald Sangster, do swear that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II, her heirs and successors according to law.
His long and unceasing political career did not quite start there, but it was his ultimate fate. First, he would serve as Member of Parliament for South St. Elizabeth and later North East Clarendon until his death. He would be appointed Minister of Social Welfare from 1950 to 1953 under the Alexander Bustamante-led administration.
He grew up with the people of the community and developed a rapport from birth. But in addition to that, he was very socially responsible, even as a young man. That consensus building was an aspect of his character that served him well in politics and in law in his career. Somehow, Donald was able, through that consensus building ability of his, through that empathetic approach, through the quiet, rational, deliberate and communication, was able to virtually single-handedly save the Commonwealth as it was then. This earned him the name given by his peers, the Commonwealth leaders, of Mr. Commonwealth. And it was for this, as much as anything else, that he was awarded the knighthood, the Knight Command of the Royal Victorian Order by Queen Elizabeth, which is a personal award.
Donald then became Minister of Finance and leader of the House of Representatives from 1953 until 1955, when his party lost the general elections. But in 1962, when the Jamaica Labour Party returned to office, the reward for his efforts was sure, as he was then appointed Minister of Finance, Deputy Prime Minister and Deputy Leader of the JLP. Life is often fickle and in many cases without warning. In January 1965, Alexander Bustamante took ill, and Donald's appointment to act as Prime Minister was certain. He would also serve as Minister of External Affairs and Defense. After the Jamaica Labour Party successfully contested the 1967 general elections, Bustamante passed the mantle of leadership to Sangster. Taking the oath of office on February 22, 1967, to become Jamaica's second Prime Minister, Donald Sangster vowed that Jamaica would now go forward under his leadership.
According to law, so help me God.
He was still working in the country's interests, crafting the details of the budget of financial year 1967-1968, when he fell ill on March 8, 1967. A diagnosis would later confirm that he was suffering from a subarachnoid hemorrhage. It would cause him to serve only 7 weeks as Prime Minister before taking his last breath on April 11, 1967.
On the 21st of March, 1967, when I woke up the morning of my birthday, and I was living at home with Ferdy and Mabel, and was told that Donald had been airlifted off to Canada, and that he was quite ill. So that was a period which you don't forget very easily. And over the next month, as the reports came in, and one day it was not too good, next day wasn't too bad, I started to plan in my own mind his return, and how it would be when he returned. Of course, that was not to be.
Donald Sangster was a member of the Parliamentary Joint Committee that framed the Constitution for independent Jamaica. He was also a member of the delegation that went to England to discuss it with the British government in 1962. Donald Sangster was our chief financial spokesman and the Jamaican man of foreign affairs. Today, his legacy lives on every time we see the $100 bill. History recalls him flying to Washington to lead the delegation that received the nation's formal submission to the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Donald Sangster was the initiator of plans to construct an airport in Montego Bay to increase our earnings from tourism. Today, the Donald Sangster Airport on the western end of the island stands in honor of him. For his son Bindley, Donald Sangster was
quietly brilliant, because while he spoke with a collective voice, there was no question as to who was in charge. So he was quietly brilliant in terms of his ability, in terms of his vision, in terms of his ability to implement and to deliver.
Today marks his 109th birthday, the celebration of a visionary. His trademark was to serve and serve the people well. In life and in death, it is said that as a politician, he has few equals. That's all the time we have for you today. Thanks so much for your company. If you missed anything, you can watch this and other programs at the JIS YouTube channel and our website. We're on all the social media platforms, so reach out to our team for any questions or suggestions. On behalf of all of us here at the JIS, I'm Adrian Atkinson. See you next time.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.